Hi, we're continuing a reflective series called The Open Heart and examining the condition of our heart, particularly or specifically with a certain issue. And I've been saying this each video series, and you can make your own choices on if you want to watch these videos out of order. I'm just telling you that it's not going to work that correctly. I recently had someone react to one of the videos in a negative way, and the things that were said were already dealt with in previous videos. So I can tell that the person didn't watch the previous videos, and you kind of these are meant to be a conversation. And if you jump in at video 13 like this is, then you're jumping in the middle of somebody's conversation. You really just I plead with you. Start at video 1 and watch from 1 on the way through. If you don't want to watch it, that's fine. But please, if you're going to watch it, especially if you're going to react to it, please watch from video 1 on, because as I said, I deal with most of the questions that would surface. And not every video do I mention specific scriptures regarding these issues. Some of it is because we've already used scripture to establish certain frameworks regarding the conversation, that as we're continuing in those frameworks, we don't need the additional restating of those verses. And again, if you're watching all the videos, you would know that. So please go back to video 1 if you're starting at 13. But today, what we're going to reflect on is I have a proposal for how to begin to move towards a solution regarding the issues of race. That's what we've been talking about, is how do we deal with racial issues as a Christian. And I have a proposal of 8 principles for us to utilize. I'll put them in the comments soon, and the references with them. And I believe these 8 principles will help us do a lot of good in advancing racial equity and purity within our human relationships, with race being a present issue. So, first principle is to monitor your heart. Now, we mentioned Proverbs 4:23, keep your heart with all vigilance. Some translations say guard your heart, for from it flow the springs of life. So be alert, be aware of what's happening in your place, and that's how you're going to be able to monitor and steer and deal with issues that are there. What I'm looking for, or what we should be looking for, is our feelings towards others. How do I feel towards other people? How do I feel about certain issues? So do certain issues trigger me with anger? And the reason why I need to know that is if they do trigger certain emotions tend to have a blinding effect. And so if I get like this knee-jerk reaction of, oh my goodness, they're talking about that, and that means they're going to do this and that, and I start getting like panicked or worked up or angry, then I might have a blinding effect that's happening. So I want to watch for that and try to work those issues out. Your emotional reaction in view of Christ. Is my reaction really what Jesus would want me to have? And you really have to work out, because some people see Jesus blasting the Pharisees and they think that means I can blast everybody. You have to realize that he wasn't really going around blasting just anybody. People who were in prominent positions, who were having a major influence on the population. These were people that he had strong reactions to, not just any person. He was often very gracious and understanding, and offered questions and steered conversations more than he just blasted people. So I want to watch that. Am I reacting like Christ would? Your feelings towards a stranger of a different race, and this is really the biggest key when it comes to the race issue, is monitoring your heart. When you encounter someone who is of a different race that you don't know, and I need to add the don't know part. We've talked about vetting, how sometimes we think we're in the clear because we don't feel negative feelings towards someone who is of an opposite race, because we've befriended them, gotten to know them, and we feel comfortable with them. But did we feel that way right away? And that's what I want to look for. How do I feel towards someone of an opposite race when I don't know them, when they're a complete stranger to me. So be monitoring that in yourself. And in doing this, we at least make sure that we don't become a problem when it comes to treating people unfairly as to their race. So first principle is monitor your heart. Second principle is monitor your actions. Galatians 6, verse 3 through 5 says, "For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor, for each will have to bear his own load." So we need to be asking ourselves questions as to why we're behaving the way that we are, and we need to examine ourselves, basically. And this is one of many scriptures that talk about the need to examine not only our insides, our heart and such, our attitudes, but also examine our actions, the things that we're doing, and ask ourselves why we're doing it. And when it comes to race, if I'm interacting with somebody that is of a different race, I want to ask myself the question, would I be doing this differently if they were a different race? And I don't think there's any harm in doing that. Just asking myself, okay, would I be doing anything different if they were a different race? If the answer is yes, then okay, then maybe I have an issue here. If not, then I'm just going to keep going about my business. And this is entirely biblical, to examine the things that I'm doing to make sure I'm being who Jesus has called me to be. So again, this is a lot of this is primarily making sure that me as an individual, I don't become a problem. So monitoring your heart, monitor your actions. The third principle, monitor your mouth. Now, this is actually not making sure you don't say the wrong things. And this is where people kind of fall apart a little bit in their understanding of the race issue. When watching what you say means try not to say the wrong thing, people get into this whole political correctness battle and they think, oh, people just get sensitive over certain words and certain ideas and I should just be able to say what I think, kind of thing. And that's not actually what and what happens is when people act that way, then they're showing me that they have an issue, because the reason why the stuff flies out of their mouth is because it's in their heart, which leads me to the meaning of this principle. Jesus said in Matthew 12:34, "For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." So when I say something, it reveals something about how I think, how I feel, what I believe. And so when I monitor my mouth, it's not that I'm trying to say the right thing. It's that I'm asking myself, when I said that, what does that mean about my feelings towards that person, towards this issue? What does it mean about what I believe? What does it mean about what's inside of me? And you will start to see that you will discover things about yourself, some good, maybe some not good, as you watch what you're saying and saying, oh, okay, so I do feel that way, I do think that way. And then you can begin a journey of starting to correct those things. And the reason why some people say the wrong things is because the wrong things are in their heart. And they say, oh, I didn't mean that, you're so touchy, and it's just kidding or whatever. Were you, or is that stuff in your heart? And the reason why some people don't say the wrong things is because they've made sure that their heart is in the right place. So again, this is helping me not be the problem by monitoring my heart, my actions, my mouth. The fourth principle is monitor your listening skills. James 1:19, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak. We are the opposite of this most of the time in our culture, particularly in social media. We tend to want to share our opinions and viewpoints when someone raises an issue. So when someone says, hey, let's talk about this race issue, boom, I want to give my opinion. When someone says some other issue that's happening right now, COVID, let's talk about COVID and restrictions and masks, boom, someone wants to start sharing their opinions. When really the Christian reaction is to always listen first. And sometimes, and this is why I said this, if you are watching this video and you haven't watched the other videos, you're not listening. And it's just a reality. There apparently, if this is video 13, there's a lot of things that were said earlier that I didn't hear. and a listener says, I want to hear everything. I want to understand where this person is coming from. I want to understand their viewpoint. I want to understand their history and why they're saying these things and what's going on in their life as to the present reaction and statements and beliefs. And I want to understand it. Are they correct? Maybe what they're saying is true, and I really want to understand. And a person who's a good listener will do that. And I think that the reason why there's really not much resolution to this race issue is because everybody's picked their opinion, and then when it comes up they just push their opinion, and then they never listen to the information that's being, well, I've heard it all already. Doesn't matter. It's a new person. Listen to it all over again, because you might find that maybe there's something you didn't see before, or maybe they're saying something that you didn't hear before. So just listen first, and listen for a long time. I'm telling you, not just with race, but so many things. If we just start listening to each other, so many things might be worked out that shouldn't be conflicts to begin with. So monitor your heart, actions, mouth, listening skills. Fifth principle, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth principle, monitor your biblical claims. First Corinthians actually. 1 Corinthians 4 verse 6 says that we should not go beyond what is written, referring to Scripture. Which means that if the Bible doesn't actually say it, and especially if it doesn't say it clearly, then I shouldn't say, hey, that's not a biblical view, or that's unbiblical, or that's not true biblical values. I need to make sure, because this is a problem the Pharisees had, and Jesus, when we talk about his strong reaction, he had a strong reaction to them laying claim that something was unbiblical, unscriptural, immoral, when the Bible never said that. And so when you start having debates with people and you pull Bible into it, you better make sure that the Bible actually says that. Otherwise, you're going beyond what is written, and you're trying to hold people to something that's not there, and you might actually be fighting against God in the process. So be careful to call something Bible when you don't know for sure it is. Be careful to call something unbiblical when you don't know for sure that it is. So monitor your use of that. Do we want to be biblical? Yes. Do we want to search out what the Bible is saying? Absolutely. Of course, I'm using Bible here. But still, monitor the way you're doing it, and are you doing it correctly? So, again, principle number 1, monitor your heart. 2, your actions. 3, your mouth. 4, listening skills. 5, Bible claims. 6, monitor how you receive and pursue information. The Bereans, in the book of Acts chapter 17 verse 11, Paul makes a statement about them. These were people there was a city called Berea. The inhabitants of that city were called Bereans, and the Christians that were there, the Berean Christians, when Paul came, Paul was a great apostle, received great revelation, was writing scripture, just was, if you were to trust somebody, he's the guy you would trust. And when he showed up, he started preaching things in the city of Berea, and the Berean Christians, Paul said they took what he said, and they went off and they looked through all the scriptures to see if what he was saying was actually true. They were trying to see if this was biblical truth and truth in general. Paul commended them for this, and this is the posture we should take: is a skeptical posture. Of when we receive information, and the video on resource is a great video to watch again on thinking through this in detail. But when we receive information, we need to play the skeptic, and we also need to be open to seeing that there might be something there. So open-minded and skeptical to examine everything, and our goal should be, when information comes in, we want to find the truth, not we want to get to a specific conclusion, because that's what a lot of people do. They have a certain opinion, and so if the resource is opposed or contradicts their opinion, then they try to find every way they can to reject it, no matter if it's proven true or not. And if it's a resource that goes with their opinion, then they don't have a skeptical eye, and they just fully trust it. And we need to make sure that we're actually being good examiners, and we're actually going out to find the information, because sometimes we have an opinion, and we base it off minimal information, and we never bother to try to get more information, and we still just stay very strong in our opinions. And that's really not the Berean way. We should be constantly looking for more and more truth. And if we don't have time to pursue the truth, then don't have a strong opinion on it. Just know that you don't have much information, so you really can't have a strong opinion. But monitor your receiving and pursuing of information. Seventh principle, monitor the comments of others. This is where we go beyond me as an individual not being a problem. The last two principles are how we're going to have an effect on others. Monitor the comments of others. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. Now, you might say, well, that's specific to Christ. Yes, but it's to Christ's mission, and throughout his life and throughout the epistles, and particularly a lot of places in the Old Testament, talk about the need to treat people correctly, especially the downtrodden. And so there is a need for us to make sure we're treating people of the other race correctly. And when we see that someone says something that's not true, say something. Do it in a Christ-like way, in a gentle way, but say something. So if someone says, oh man, everybody who believes that Black Lives Matter stuff is Marxist and unbiblical and against American values and such, then say something about it. Or if someone says, oh, I'm tired of hearing about America's slavery past, say something about it. When you hear someone say, oh man, you know what, that person had to have done something to cause police to be behave that way because police officers aren't that bad, or this is only an isolated incident, or all the different arguments that we've talked about throughout this series, say something about it. Just say, hey, well, have you ever thought about this? Or, well, but maybe this. And again, this series will help you, give you some information on how to know what to say. Refer them to this series and say, well, maybe you should think about this, or refer them to a book. Do something to kind of correct the thought, or say, well, I actually don't think that's true because, and don't just sit there and watch people stay in their beliefs. Challenge them. We are destroying arguments, Paul says. Start to make it hard for people to stay in the viewpoint that they have. And you might say, well, they might just choose to keep avoiding me then, now that they know that, they're not going to talk about that with me anymore. Well, what will happen, though, is if more of us do this, then they'll have less people to talk to, and they won't be able to spread their ideas and help encourage other people to stay in those beliefs. So say something. Last principle, monitor the climate. Micah 6:8 says, he has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. Be humble, be kind, and in humility and kindness, push for justice. So if you see that, and no, social justice is not unbiblical. No, social justice does not mean that you have to buy into everything that someone who uses the word social justice buys into. But this is a social issue, it's a relational issue, the matters of race, and we want justice in those areas. And because God told us to. So we need to seek to advocate. And when we see wrongs, especially if they're close to us, we need to advocate and push for, no, this person needs to be treated fairly. That person needs to be treated fairly. No, these laws need to be right here. And just push for those things. And I think that if we monitor our heart, actions, mouth, listening skills, Bible claims, receiving and pursuing information, the comments of others, and the climate that we're in, I think that we'll start to be on a pathway of finding solutions. And so I hope you will join me with that. Join me in this endeavor. If you would, please comment on this and say that you're with me. We're now 13 videos into this. Please let me know if you're with me. If you're opposed to this, then please just say, like, actually why, without an accusation type comment. And if you do, then just know that you'll be asked to come into a conversation. Don't just simply say your opinion. Let's actually talk about this. So let's grow in our understanding, and let's see racial equity come about one person at a time. And the remaining videos, I'm going to work on maybe giving you some evidence of racial issues, and then at some point we'll wrap this up. Maybe I'll refer you to another place to get more information on that. But let's keep. Let me know if you think this plan is good. Again, I'm not really pushing for heavy promotion, but if you do know people that you think would be open to hearing this, then send them video one and get them started on the journey. If you're watching on YouTube though, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, and if you're on Facebook, please follow the page and you'll receive notifications when new videos are uploaded. God bless you.